Hello and welcome to the Real Podcast. My name is Logan and I'm your host for not. Well, hello and welcome to the Real Podcast. My name is Logan and I'm your host for not only today's episode of the podcast, but for every episode going forward. If you're not familiar with my YouTube channel, well, first off, I want to say welcome. Thanks for clicking on this video and hearing what I have to say about several different topics that we're going to talk about today. I am, as you can probably tell, partially blind, but on this channel, we talk about film, streaming shows, movies, the latest news, trailers, all sorts of things. And so if those are things you're interested in, glad to have you here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you want to see more from me. And this is an idea that I've had ever since the inception of this channel. I've thought about doing a podcast for a very long time, and I'm so glad to finally be here doing it. I wanted a space where I could just talk uncut, unfiltered about news and do some reviews, just kind of whatever I felt like doing. And so that's what this is. It might evolve to something more, but for now, it's just an uncut discussion about some movies and some news topics that have come out today, June 25th. If you're watching this the evening that I upload it, it is June 25th, 2025, and we're just talking about some news. I do want to do one film review, but we'll get to that in a second. But again, thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and dive in. Our first topic today is just a quick review for my most anticipated film of the year, and that is F1, starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Javier Bardem, and Kerry Condon, directed by Joseph Kosinski, the director behind Top Gun Maverick, and producer Jerry Bruckheimer. I'm a pretty big F1 fan, if you couldn't tell by this dirty hat. I had to choose between this and 5 other hats on which one to wear for this video. Had to go with the McLaren hat, go Lando and Oscar. So I was a pretty easy target audience for this film. I've been excited for this one for quite a while, I'd say, and I had the opportunity to finally sit down and watch the film at the IMAX Fan First screenings that happened just a couple days ago. I saw about 10 minutes of the film back in April at CinemaCon in Las Vegas. It was the first 10 minutes, and I was immediately hooked. I would have been thrilled to watch the whole film right then and there, but now watching it in an IMAX theater, I am pleased to say this is an exhilarating, wildly entertaining summer blockbuster that you cannot miss. And if you can watch it in IMAX, I would highly, highly recommend it. Brad Pitt plays Sonny Hayes, who is a weathered driver who had a very short stint in F1, about 30 years prior to the setting of the story, and his time was cut short after a nearly fatal crash that he is still grappling with when his friend Ruben, played by Javier Bardem, comes to recruit him to his team that is struggling on the grid. So he is paired with rookie Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name. And together the two struggle to come eye to eye about things. They grapple on the track. It's just a butting of heads of teammates that want the same things, that want this team to succeed, but are also fighting against an F1 grid, which is a heavily competitive space on and off the track. The racing sequences are electric. From the very first one, which isn't even an F1 race, to the first F1 race, all the way up into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is the final race of the F1 season. Each sequence, I was exhilarating. It was so electric. It was fun. As somebody who watches every race, it really puts you in the cockpit with these drivers. It feels like you're on the track. And filming for the film was done at several race weekends, so, each Grand Prix weekend. So filming was done in front of a real audience, alongside real drivers. And you see a couple of them throughout the film. One of them being my favorite driver, Lando Norris. Um, it was just a really exciting film to watch, not only as a film fan, but as an F1 fan. You don't have to know anything about the sport to enjoy this film, and fans of the sport will also get a very big kick out of some Easter eggs in the film. I chuckled out loud several times at some Easter eggs. One in Act 3, I was thrilled about from a race several years ago. You'll recognize some familiar commentators from the sport. It felt very authentic, and it's clear that Bruckheimer and Kosinski wanted to preserve some of that authenticity and grounded nature that they had with Top Gun Maverick just a few years ago. And it really pays off here. The performances are all solid. I will say the romance between Brad Pitt, his character, and Kerry Condon's character was a little bit forced. You could have taken that out of the film, but it certainly doesn't hurt the film at all. It doesn't detract from anything. It's just something that you probably could have taken away. And you might have heard that the film does run long. It is a lengthy 2 hours and 35 minutes. Now, in my opinion, this runtime is completely fair because, well, crafting an F1 team to improve over a season doesn't happen in a night. And it doesn't happen in one race weekend. You know, you can't go from one Grand Prix to another and have a drastically different car, and then boom, that's just not how it works in the sport. And so I think following this team for roughly 9 races of a season and watching them evolve and understand the car and seeing what works and what doesn't, you need a lengthy runtime to establish your characters and see how this car and the drivers develop through each race weekend. It made perfect sense for me, and I never felt like it was dragging. Now, I will say, maybe that is because I'm an F1 fan, so I was eagerly awaiting the next race, and I was fascinated by some of the technical things they're actually acknowledging in this film. I will admit that might be part of it, but I do think that it does seem perfectly appropriate to have this sort of runtime, and you really feel like things evolve from Act 1 to Act 3. It's satisfying. The soundtrack is great. Again, see this film in IMAX if you can. It was so impressive to see how they managed to film the racing sequences with these IMAX cameras, much like they did with Top Gun Maverick. They try to put these cameras in the cars, on the outside of the cars. It felt so immersive. I couldn't take my eyes off of it, and I can't wait to see this film multiple times, both in IMAX and Dolby Cinema. I thought this film was great. Have you seen F1? Let me know in the comments down below. And, well, with that, let's move on to our next topic. And that centers around also a film that Joseph Kosinski has been involved in. And that is Top Gun 3 and the future of that film. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at an article here from GQ. Again, bear with me. Like I said at the beginning of this, I am partially blind. But here in an interview, Kosinski was asked about Top Gun. And if I can find it here. There it is. Kosinski, in an interview talking mostly about F1, was asked a little bit about Top Gun 3. And he talks about the progression of the story here. And it's going to see Maverick face an existential crisis. And, well, it sounds like they have a pretty good story here. So there's an excerpt from Kosinski's interview. And I gotta say, I'm very curious on a Top Gun sequel. Maverick really surprised me. I enjoy the first Top Gun for what it is. Going into Maverick, I was very, very excited to see what Kosinski and Cruise were going to cook up. You have Glenn Powell, you have Miles Teller. I was very, very curious in the film, which I also got to see at CinemaCon back in, what was that, 2022? I think? Yeah, 2022. Got to watch that film at CinemaCon, and it blew me away. I went to go see that movie so many times in theaters that summer, just to watch it with an audience. It was just magic on the screen. And I have been curious about what Top Gun 3 would be about. Maverick facing an existential crisis here. I want to. My hope for a Top Gun 3 is, Tom Cruise is getting up there in age. He's in his 60s. And you can kind of start to see with these projects that he's signing up for that he is starting to kind of wind down just a little bit. I mean, I know he has a movie that he wants to do in space, but he is starting to wind down, saying that maybe that the Final Reckoning is going to be the last Mission Impossible. Sounds like this is going to be the last Top Gun film that he's going to be in. And so he's starting to slowly kind of come back to ground level with a lot of his performances. I'm very, very excited for his film that he's doing with Inarritu next year. And seeing a Top Gun where Maverick is facing an existential crisis, what I really hope we see a little bit of in this film is Maverick realizing that despite his love for the position he's in and the things that he gets to do and just flying, I want to see that crisis be something like his career is over. He's at an age where he has to hang it up, and he has to come to terms with that. While we still have Rooster and Hangman in the height of their careers, Miles Teller and Glenn Powell in their roles respectively. I hope we see them back. I'd be shocked if we didn't, honestly. So I want to see him have that bit of jealousy, maybe some regret for things he didn't do in his career, and start to face that next chapter in his life. I think we're at that point in this series. I think that really would kind of culminate this franchise beautifully. Top Gun, we see Maverick at the start of his career. Top Gun Maverick, we see him in late Act 2, early Act 3 of his career, trying to figure out his place in a very rapidly evolving universe and world where there are drones that can do the job that he's doing, but he's content right where he is. So I'm very curious to see how Top Gun 3 shapes out. I'm curious to see if Joseph Kosinski comes back to direct. I really, really hope he does, and quite honestly, I don't see why he wouldn't. He did Top Gun Maverick, then he went straight to F1, and I know he's got a couple other films that he's mentioned that are in the works, but I would be shocked if he didn't come back to do Top Gun 3. I'm very interested to see how this film shapes out. What about you? What do you think about a Top Gun 3? Are you interested? Let me know in the comments down below, and, let's move on. Now, our next topic comes from Marvel, and that is the Fantastic Four First Steps final trailer. And this was released just this morning because we are about a month out from the film's release. And I've enjoyed every trailer that we've got from this film so far. I think it's been pretty entertaining. It seems that the stakes are high. I can feel the emotion, and the family unit seems strong. And you see all of that once again in this trailer. The threat of Galactus feels genuine. The special effects look good. I'm rooting for this film. I really am. Thunderbolts might not have been the biggest win in terms of box office, but it was a win in terms of reviews, both from critics and audiences. So I'm really, really rooting for this film. I've enjoyed every trailer so far, and this film seems like it is really dialing up that threat from Galactus. And I'm going to be honest, I have never read a comic book in my life, so if I'm saying things here in a little bit that are ripped right from the comics, I want you to know that I didn't mean it in terms of a spoiler. I'm just coming from a genuine the only things I know about Marvel are what the TV shows, and the movies have shown me and introduced to me. So, what I'm really hoping for this film is I want the Fantastic Four, and this is just pure speculation, and kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this trailer and things that um, the crew have said about the film, that the Fantastic Four are the only superheroes on this planet that they're on right now. And when you have Galactus, a force capable of destroying an entire planet, what does the world look like when they are relying on just four people? And how do those four people grapple with the weight and the burden of having to save the entire world? There's a lot of hefty weight and drama that I hope that we see a lot of from these characters after we are introduced to them and have a little bit of groundwork and framework for who they are. Again, pure speculation here. If you haven't seen Thunderbolts, I'm going to dive into just mild spoilers for that end credit scene. And again, I've never read a comic, never seen a Fantastic Four film. So if I'm saying something that has happened in a comic, please know that I am not spoiling it. I'm just genuinely at my microphone, at my desk, speculating. So with that out of the way, the Thunderbolts post-credit scene sees the Fantastic Four coming to the Marvel universe as we know it. Well, as we think we know it with all this multiverse stuff. Who really knows at this point? And I want to see the fallout of Galactus in the film. I know that sounds dark, but I want to see these characters grapple with that. That leads to some, in my opinion, some really rich material. And there might be other ways of doing that in this film. I haven't seen it. I don't know. But to me, I just kind of want to see them grapple with they are the only hope for this universe, and how do they defeat Galactus? And we see several shots of him in this trailer. Visual effects on him look great, looks menacing. I'm excited to see Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer. Not familiar with that character too much, but I do like Julia Garner. Ozark, even the Boogeyman, not the Boogeyman, the Wolfman from earlier this year, I thought she was pretty good in. So I'm excited to see her in that role, but I just want some emotional heft to this film, and I think we're gonna get it along with that tight familial unit. The action looks great. There were a couple jokes that didn't quite land, but I think there will be plenty of others within the film that do land, so I'm not too concerned about the humor. But let's balance that humor and the impending doom that this film is sure to have evenly. And in an interview, I think it was last week, I can't remember who said the exact quote, but they said that Fantastic Four was going to lead directly into Avengers Doomsday, which, aside from Spider-Man, is the next Marvel film on the calendar, to my knowledge. And I would bet money on a post-credit scene where we get a look and hear Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. Now, I don't know, pure speculation, but I do think we are going to very, very soon see Doctor Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr., for Avengers Doomsday within this film. I'm curious to see how they are going to work it into the film, but I'd be willing to bet that we see it here pretty soon. So, what did you think about the final trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps? Are you excited for the film? Let me know in the comments down below. And, well, let's keep rocking and rolling here. So far, so good in terms of technology speaking. Our next topic takes us to AMC theaters and something that I saw pop up on Twitter earlier today, and that is that if you go to AMC's website and you click on a specific location, you will see a little itty bitty tiny banner at the top signifying that the film will start 25 to 30 minutes after previews. Now, this comes not too long after the company announced that there would be one final premium ad spot that would just be a basic commercial that you would see on cable television or a streaming service that has commercials roped into it. To which my thought was that just pulls me out of the movie-going experience. If I've already sat and watched about 20 minutes of previews, I don't want to see like a commercial for like Progressive or not to name any names negatively, but I don't want to see a company commercial and have that immediately pull me out of the mood of getting ready to watch a movie. I'm sitting in a theater with a bag of popcorn watching movie trailers for upcoming movies, and all of a sudden I'm being shown the latest model of an electric car or a truck, whatever the ad is that you want to conceive. That would just pull me out and then immediately thrust me into a studio logo. I would be sitting there thinking, wow, that just yanked me right out of the atmosphere I paid to be in. And so I'm not a big fan of this new ad spot that's going to come at the very end of trailers. And I don't know if I completely trust this 25 to 30 minute disclaimer. I don't know, because granted, last night I finally went to go see 28 Years Later, which if you haven't seen that, it is an absolute must watch. I almost did a review for it here on the podcast, but I decided to put my focus on F1 in terms of reviews. But it's a very, very good film. Highly, highly recommend, and go see it so we can get this third film, because I'm very curious to see where this story goes into Bone Temple. I think that's what it's called, and into this supposed third film. Go see it. One of the best films of the year. Anyway, the film got rolling. The Sony logo came up at 27 minutes after the film was supposed to start. Now, new release, a lot of trailers. Then AMC has their, no cell phone ad. And then you have the Coke car chase ad. And then you have Nicole Kidman. And I saw the film in Dolby Cinema, so you had kind of an introduction to Dolby Cinema, which all of those are fine. All of those just are about the theater you're in. I think they should play before the previews, but that's just me. The Dolby Cinema one is fine right before the film so that you know the experience you're about to get in that specific theater. I think that one is perfect right before the movie. Nicole Kidman, perfectly fine right there. The other ones I think could play before the movie, although people seriously do need a reminder about silencing their phones in a theater. That's another topic for another day. But I'm not. I think this is a step in the right direction. I think that we need to go a little bit further with this, but I am glad to see that AMC is at least on their website for now. I hope we see this translate to the app, and maybe a reminder when you buy your tickets on that confirmation screen that you see either in the phone, the app on the phone, or in an email, however you present your tickets. I hope that we do see that disclaimer carry over to there, but I think this is a lukewarm start to allowing audiences a bit of flexibility, because I don't mind watching trailers. Sometimes I find one that I didn't know about, and that's fun. That's really fun. But sitting there for 30 minutes is a bit much. It becomes a bit tedious. I just want to start watching the film that I'm here to watch, especially if it's one that I'm eagerly anticipating. I don't need to see this trailer for the 100th time. I'm already excited. You already sold me. And I just want to say, I understand that it's, for maybe these people haven't been to the movie in months. But having this disclaimer on the website, I think, is a start. What I would like to see happen is for each movie, no matter if it's a new release or an old release, I want to see an exact runtime start. I want to see if the movie's going to start at 7:26, 7:35, 7:34. I want to know the exact runtime for when a movie is going to start. Because if it's 25 minutes, if it's 32 minutes, I want to know so that I can factor that in. So I'm not sitting in an auditorium for half an hour watching trailers and then, like I said earlier, the AMC premium spot ad for whatever it happens to be. I don't want that to ruin my experience. And I love going to the theater. I go multiple times a week, almost every week, and I don't want that ruined. So I hope that soon we see an exact runtime on the website, on the app, and then on that ticket confirmation page. But I do think that we are slowly headed in the right direction to make that happen. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think about this little disclaimer that AMC is now having about a movie starting 25 to 30 minutes after its scheduled start time? And what if it's 26 and somebody does 30? I just think that we need that exact runtime. I really, really do. That'll alleviate a lot of headaches for people that are not familiar with the number of trailers that we see in front of a lot of new releases, especially. That helps planning your evening. It just helps with so many different things. So I hope that we do see that in the near future, but I do think that we're headed in the right direction. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And, well, let's keep moving on with our topics. Next up is one that I certainly didn't think we'd be talking about today. This afternoon, word came out that a sequel was happening. Now, this isn't to a big blockbuster. This isn't to a big franchise IP or anything like that. It's a follow-up to a film from over a decade ago. In the film, The Social Network. Now, David Fincher might not be coming back to direct this film. He's very busy with Netflix. He is doing this Cliff Booth film, which I still can't believe that's happening. He's very busy over there. So Aaron Sorkin, who has only directed 3 films as of the day that I'm filming this, he has done Molly's Game, which is a film that I enjoy. Trial of the Chicago 7, which is actually one that I somehow skipped over. And Being the Ricardos, which is another film that I enjoyed. He's only directed 3. He's written several others, of course. He's a very, very talented screenwriter. So he's coming back to not only write the script, which got him an Academy Award when The Social Network came out for adapted screenplay, he's coming back to write the script and direct the film itself. Now, if I can pull this up here, give me just a second. We have the news article from Deadline here. Here we go. I think I can bring it up like this. Boom. Sorkin's original screenplay received several awards. The story will center behind the Wall Street Journal's The Facebook Files by Jeff Horowitz. And it goes on to say that the film will not be specifically a January 6th film, but more how the platform contributed to the effect on teens, preteens, violence, and all of that on social media. I apologize. This print is really small. I got to figure out a way where I can actually read this article word for word. Yeah, it's going to center around the 2020 election and the January 6th riot and how Facebook not promoted, but allowed the information and the videos to get out, and just social media in general, and the rapid evolution of it. And I gotta say, I never expected a follow-up to the Social Network. I wouldn't have ever guessed that we would have gotten one. I know Sorkin has teased it in the past, but to actually now have a follow-up in the works at Sony with Sorkin writing and directing, I'm very, very curious. Because Facebook, we had The Social Network, which is an excellent film. The platform has evolved greatly as other social media brands have evolved, and as media outlets have evolved to the times, and major events have forced these things to shift and change. It's a very interesting approach, and I'm curious to see how Sorkin handles this subject matter. Now, the big question that the article did not have an answer for was whether or not Jesse Eisenberg would be returning as Mark Zuckerberg. And honestly, I gotta say, if he's not, I don't know how interested people are going to be in this film, because he is such an integral part to the first film, obviously. And if you're calling it The Social Network Part 2, which might shift and change as production begins and the script is finished, that might change, and it might shift a little bit. But I think you need Jesse Eisenberg in this film as Mark Zuckerberg, acknowledging the change that is rapidly happening on this platform that he created, and seeing I hope we see both the good and bad that is coming from this chaotic point in the American history. I don't know. I want to know more about this project before I speak too much on it. It's a very early days. We just know that it's in the works at Sony. Sorkin is writing and directing. I am very curious to see him in his fourth directorial effort, and I'm always up for another Sorkin script. Sign me up. I'm just curious to see what kind of comes from this film and what angle they take and how they handle the subject matter. So I'm sure we'll be talking about this project much more as it kind of evolves and cast is added. I don't expect we'll see any of the other cast members return. Why would they? But I do really, really, really hope we see Jesse Eisenberg return to his role as Mark Zuckerberg. So, what do you think about the sequel to The Social Network? Are you a fan of the first one? Let me know in the comments down below. And let's round this first episode of the podcast out with one more topic that actually was released while I was making my notes for this first episode. So, if you're watching this, you've heard about this by now, but let me tell you, it was a big old surprise when I found out about it. And that is Denis Villeneuve, the very, very, very talented director behind the Dune films, Sicario, Enemy, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners, Enemy, a wildly talented director that I look up to a great, great deal, especially as an aspiring filmmaker. I think he is just incredible. Well, he's been tapped to direct the next Bond film. This will be the first one from Amazon MGM Studios. Now, before you get too excited, no, we still don't know who our Bond is. But let me tell you, having Denis Villeneuve as your director, entering this new era of Bond at this new studio, and getting a new actor to portray the role after Daniel Craig, tapping Denis Villeneuve is certainly not a bad way to get people on board. And I gotta say, I might not know who our Bond is, but I'm already on board with the director. So his quote about this new endeavor, this comes from Variety, and I apologize if I misread some of this. Some of my earliest movie-going memories are connected to 007. I grew up watching James Bond films with my father ever since Dr. No with Sean Connery. I'm a die-hard Bond fan. To me, he is sacred territory, Villeneuve said. I intend to honor the tradition and open the path for many more missions to come. This is a massive responsibility, but also incredibly exciting for me, and a huge honor. Amy, David, and I are absolutely thrilled to bring him back to the screen. Thank you to Amazon MGM Studios for their trust. Now, I'm very, very curious to see if we are going to continue the more grounded espionage, a little bit darker of a tone that we had with the Daniel Craig James Bond films with Denis Villeneuve's take on the character. But I don't know. I think we're going to have a bit of a balance between grounded and gritty and exciting Mission Impossible-esque thrills. Now, I'm not saying James Bond's going to hang off the side of a plane, but I think we are going to have more of an old school, kind of like 70s, 80s Bond vibe to this film. I think Denis can really bring that to this project. And I'm now extremely curious to see who our James Bond is. I have been saying for years, my two picks are Henry Golding and, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Richard Madden. That's it. Those two have been my picks from the beginning when we knew that Daniel Craig would no longer be in the role. I think they would make excellent Bonds and would very much match with Villeneuve's energy as a director. The man is very, very busy. I'm curious to see if this is going to where this is going to fall in his upcoming projects, because if I remember correctly here, and I'm going to do a quick search, I think he has, I'm just going to double check here. I think he has 5 projects in the works now, including Bond, that he is set to direct. Obviously, one of them is Dune Messiah, but let me double check. Yeah, upcoming 5 projects. You got Dune Messiah, Bond, and then his where is it? Where did it go? Where did it go? Is that not on here anymore? I know he was going to do that movie about, I think it was about the dropping of a nuclear bomb, I think, or the fallout of a nuclear bomb. I think it was something like that. I can't remember. I don't see it on his filmography now in terms of a director, unless they change the title. Anyway, I'm very curious about Denis Villeneuve directing a Bond film. Again, I think he clearly has the knack for gripping intensity. Sicario has proven that. Prisoners has proven that. All of his films kind of have elements, most of his films have an element that I could see playing so well in a Bond film. So you got me on board, Amazon MGM Studios. I was skeptical when the sale happened and that it was going into the hands of a major studio and that the producers who have been long attached, it's been a family-run production for so long. I was hesitant when the rights were given over to Amazon MGM, but you tapped Denis Villeneuve to direct Bond 25. So I'm still a little bit skeptical, but I will say I have a lot more confidence in this project now. And clearly, Amazon has an idea. Denis has an idea that they are very passionate about, I'm sure. Otherwise, I'm sure he'd be a hard get. I mean, he's very busy. So, what do you think about Denis Villeneuve directing the next James Bond film? This is now an eagerly anticipated project of mine. He's one of my favorite working directors. I look up to him so much. So let me know in the comments down below. And, well, we're out of topics. And this went okay, I think. Thank you so much for watching bits of this episode, all of the episode. I don't know. Whatever you watched, I appreciate you for clicking on this video and being here and listening to me muddle my way through this first podcast episode. I promise things will get smoother. I just got to sort everything out, and we'll get there. Might take a few episodes, so be patient, but we'll get there. We'll be okay. This show will be okay. And again, I can't thank you enough for listening to me ramble about these news topics and F1 and all of these things. So, well, I'm going to end this podcast the way that I end every video on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you can hit the subscribe button down below to see more film content from me. And, well, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.